Good afternoon, welcome. You are tuned into the Labor Forum here at WRFG 89.3 FM. We are also streaming on WRFG.org, and there's a mobile app. And of course, this program is also being videoed, and we have our own YouTube channel, the Labor Forum YouTube channel. My name is Diane Mathowitz. I'm a retired auto worker and have been so honored to be able to do this program now for several years. Not taking the place, but sitting in the chair, where Gary Washington started this program in 1986, carried it forward for many, many years. And we appreciate Gary for taking the initiative and having the idea of doing a program called the Labor Forum, which allows the voices of working people to be broadcast and to talk about the issues and the concerns we have and our solutions for those issues and concerns. So seated next to me is Paul McLennan. He's also with a union member. I'm with UAW Local 10. Paul is a former MARTA worker, a retired MARTA worker. That's the Transit Workers Union. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Diane.
So we're going to start the program off with we have a full house for today. We have guests coming in, multiple guests, and so we want to make sure we make enough time for that. This program is, of course, starting here on Monday, July 6th, and this is the opening day of our summer pledge drive. We would like to remind all our listeners to please do your part in making sure the WRFG stays on the air, and also that the Labor Forum is supported by your financial donations. So you can go online at wrfg.org. You can come into the studio, actually, or the station at 1083 Austin Avenue Northeast, and the zip code is 30307. And you can call in as well at 404-523-8989. So the opinions that are expressed on the Labor Forum may not necessarily be those of the Board of Directors, staff, or volunteers here at WRFG. So the headlines, boy, I worked long and hard on these headlines today because there was so much that has taken place. And of course, the thing that, if you go on the internet, if you listen to the news, well, the big news was the Greek election. And there is so much to say about the meaning of this decisive vote by the people of Greece yesterday to reject the austerity demands of the bankers and bosses. More than 61% of those voting said no, and a big no, to a bailout deal that required even more cutbacks in pensions, wages, and social services, the privatization of state resources, tax increases for working people, and the elimination of labor rights. Greece is carrying a crushing debt of $350 billion. Some $270 billion of which is owed to the European Central Bank, the IMF, and European countries. These loans were entered into by previous pro-business governments that had no issue with the lenders' demands for reducing worker rights and social benefits while ensuring the exploitation of labor for the profit of a few. When the Syriza party won the national elections earlier this year on a platform of fighting the austerity measures, Germany and France in particular took a hard line against any concessions, fearing that resistance to austerity would spread to other countries such as Spain, Italy, and Portugal. While Syriza attempted to bargain with the Eurozone leaders and seemed willing to accept some additional austerity measures, Greek trade unions, left parties, and others made it clear that there would be no more concessions. The move by Syriza to set up a referendum on the bailout measures was promoted as a way to strengthen the hand of the government in future negotiations. The strong vote is definitely a popular demand to change the terms of any agreement, not to about how Greece will pay the debt, but how the debt can be reduced, can be eliminated, can be cut, and also programs for economic vitalization. But the vote was a no to subservience to banks and corporations. Across Europe and in cities in the U.S., protests and rallies in support of the Greek people's no vote were held prior to Sunday. Labor federations expressed their solidarity with the fight against austerity and urged the spread of resistance. The President of the European Council has called for an emergency meeting of the 19 Eurozone leaders for Tuesday night, tomorrow night. German leader Angela Merkel continues to demand Greece's capitulation to the bank's demands, while others are less strident. The path forward for Greek workers, students, retirees, and others is fraught with obstacles, but people all over the world are cheered by the clear message that workers have had enough and will not take it anymore. Here in national news, some 5 million workers would be affected by an executive order announced by President Obama last week that would change the rules governing overtime pay. Starting in 2016, the cap for receiving time-and-a-half pay for over 40 hours of work would rise to $50,440. Currently, white-collar workers who make more than $455 a week, or just over $11 an hour, are ineligible for overtime pay. These workers, who often perform many of the same tasks as hourly workers, are given a title of manager and provide owners of fast food restaurants, discount and retail stores, gas stations, and other businesses free labor, working as many as 80 hours a week. Opposition is expected in Congress to this executive order, and business and trade associations have already announced plans to get around the ruling. Workers will need to see through the false divisions promoted by the bosses and fight for livable wages and benefits for all workers. And here in Georgia, the AJC reported on a recent study by the Department of Community Health that backed up the complaints of Georgia teachers and their spouses about the high costs and inferior benefits of their state health plan. They organized a group called Tragic last year. Teachers rallied to advocate for Georgia insurance choices. This study verifies that teachers, state employees, and retirees pay more for their health insurance and receive fewer benefits than workers in similar government-subsidized programs, even in Georgia and definitely in nearby states. The response by Georgia legislators was to push $100 million of health care costs for non-certified workers, such as bus drivers and cafeteria workers, onto local school districts. These public school districts have already had massive cuts from the state that created layoffs, furlough days, no raises, programs eliminated, shortened school hours, shortened school years, and larger classes. Additionally, some of these same elected officials have called for forcing these workers to pay more or to reduce their health benefits altogether. Tragic leaders have denounced this attempt to divide school workers, saying, quote, "Non-certified employees perform essential functions in our schools. The state should not ask people who work alongside each other daily to have two separate plans," close quote. And those are our labor headlines for today. I'm going to turn right away to Paul McLennan, who will bring us our This Week in Labor History story.
Thanks, Diane. On July 7th and 8th, 1998, over 500,000 people engaged in a general strike across Puerto Rico. This was a significant percentage of the U.S. colony's total population of 3.8 million at the time. The strike, endorsed by over 60 unions, forced the closure of shopping malls, banks, hospitals, and halting transport. Many government offices were also closed as civil servants rallied behind the strike. Commerce and tourist activity around the island were halted as crowds of protesters marched in the streets. Workers at the Puerto Rico Telephone Company had been on strike since June 18th over the government's privatization plans. In 1974, the government had purchased the phone company from ITT for $168 million. The newly nationalized phone company sought to improve service and expand networks, beginning with a $500 million modernization fund. By the 1990s, the phone company was donating $100 million each year to the government and gave free service to Puerto Rico's public schools. In February 1990, Governor Hernandez Colon proposed the sale of the phone company to Bell Atlantic, which merged with GTE in 2000 to create Verizon. Unions in Puerto Rico opposed the sale, and on March 28, 1990, 3,800 telephone workers went on a one-day strike. On the same day, 150,000 Puerto Ricans marched on the Capitol building in San Juan. These actions, in addition to a law requiring a $3 billion sales price and a ban on firings for 18 months, blocked the proposed sale. When Pedro Rosello became governor of Puerto Rico in 1993, he advocated a program of widespread privatization. The neoliberal political agenda of his administration wanted to sell off public assets and services to mostly U.S.-based multinational corporations. In 1996, the U.S. Congress passed the Telecommunications Act, and Puerto Rico's telephone market, like many others in the U.S., was deregulated, causing an influx of competitors into the market. As the sale was being planned, a 12-hour general strike was held in October 1997. Over 100,000 people participated in the coalition action, one of the largest gatherings of Puerto Rican residents in history. On May 27, 1998, Rosello announced that the government had reached an agreement to sell to a group of investors led by Connecticut-based GTE. On June 19, 1998, the Senate of Puerto Rico approved the sale. In response, 6,400 phone workers went on strike. In the weeks leading up to the general strike, police beatings of strikers generated an outpouring of popular support. As the workers' strike dragged on with no response from the government, a coalition called the Greater Committee of Labor Organizations was formed with the goal of launching a general strike. On July 28th, union workers voted to end their 41-day strike after receiving assurances that there would be no reprisals for striking workers. However, the strike failed to stop the privatization plan, and the phone company was sold for $1.9 billion. The 1998 general strike was an important chapter in the Puerto Rican liberation struggle. The fight against privatization continues and by necessity will broaden, for it is part of today's new colonialism and a key ingredient in the neoliberal policies threatening millions in so many parts of the world. With the actions of July 7th and 8th, 1998, the Puerto Rican people proved the enormous potential of working people to unite in their struggle. Puerto Rico was in the news last week because Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla announced that Puerto Rico's $72 billion debt was unpayable. As a result, Puerto Rico has begun rationing water, closing schools, and watching its healthcare system collapse. Puerto Rico's unemployment is more than twice the U.S. national rate, and its poverty level of 45% is nearly double that of the poorest U.S. state. The Obama administration's response was that there would be no bailout for Puerto Rico. The federal government's assistance will be similar to what it offered to Detroit, consisting of advice from a panel of administration officials and experts. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said, Congress should consider giving Puerto Rico the ability to file Chapter 9 bankruptcy to restructure its debt. The retired U.S. bankruptcy judge who oversaw Detroit's bankruptcy has now been retained by Puerto Rico. On Democracy Now!, Puerto Rican journalist and activist Juan Gonzalez commented, "It's been 117 years since the United States took over Puerto Rico during the Spanish-American War and occupied the country. And we have seen, decade after decade, American companies take huge amounts of profit out of the island. For the first 50 years, it was the sugar barons with their plantations in Puerto Rico. Then the next 50 years, it was the pharmaceutical and the textile companies using Puerto Rico as a tax haven, made it the biggest source of profit to American companies in the world. And now you have the hedge funds and the banks that have been peddling all this debt to Puerto Rico for the last few decades, and now are demanding payment before anything else. And of course, the Puerto Rican people are an afterthought. So this is the problem, that for 117 years, the United States has been milking Puerto Rico, and now it wants to basically say, well, this is your problem. These financial issues are your problem. Just as Frederick Douglass said, African Americans could not celebrate the 4th of July as long as they were not free. The same is true for Puerto Rico. The right of freedom and self-determination for the Puerto Rican people must be upheld."
Thank you, Paul. So we really had two reports today about the control banks and corporations have over the resources and labor of working people and drive them into incredible debt that can never be paid back, even though, as your comment was, they have reaped billions and billions in profits over the years. With that, folks, we will take a short break, and then we're going to be back with some of our guests who are here to talk about a program that's coming up next Monday, as a matter of fact, that unites home health care workers and the seniors that they take care of. So please stay tuned. Okay. We're back. This is the Labor Forum on WRFG 89.3 FM here in Atlanta. And we have two guests seated next to Paul and me here on the table. I want to introduce Jean Davis. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
I think this is the first time you've been on the program with me, anyhow.
That's right.
Probably with Gary.
Yes.
So Jean is a long-time union activist in this town, and she is working with a program called Caring Across Generations, and she's the senior organizer. We also have Neil Sardona here in the studio, and Neil's been here many times because Jobs with Justice is one of the most active community-based labor community organizations in the city.
I really wish I could tell you.
So we'll have both of you talk about this program. Who wants to start? Jean?
Well, yes, I'm Jean Davis again, and I'm very passionate about this program that I think is going to make a difference in the lives of seniors, that the baby boomers that we expect to come aboard. Caring Across Generations is a campaign organized by Atlanta Jobs with Justice as a part of a national movement to transform the way we care in this country. We are harnessing the power of social action, storytelling, and grassroots organizing to spark connections across generations that will strengthen families and caregiver relationships. If you don't know, I'd like to give you some statistics about seniors in the state of Georgia. Currently, there are over 13,200 eligible seniors on a statewide waiting list.
And this is a waiting list for home health care?
Yes, it
aides?
is. Yes, it is.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome? And what the list shows us is that $1,000.884 is based on that service for a person to stay in the home. But listen to the...
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not understanding. I mean, in other words, a senior who is eligible for this program is allotted this $1,000
Yes.
to pay for a home health care worker.
Yes.
For what, a month or a year? Or?
It doesn't state that on my sheet, but I'll have to find that information out, and I'll share that back with you. But what stands out so much about it is that the state pays $13,200 to a nursing home. So you see where the discrepancy is for me is that we're saying we'd rather give the nursing home the money as opposed to helping families who really need that help and the workers to get the same amount of money.
I'm guessing this is per month then.
It has to be per month.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I just got my statistics, and I needed to be able to give you some statistics. But what we're doing is drawing attention to that, because in a little while we're going to have what we call the baby boomers.
I'm one of them.
Oh, you're one of them. Congratulations. Who are going to want to stay in their homes, and rightfully so. And I have a situation right now with a sister who is staying with her daughter. And they are looking, it's very hard for them to have someone to come in. She wants to stay at home, and she's so far down on the list to even get in a nursing home that is so scary. So this program is very close to my heart, because I know someone, and I know the struggle of young people who are trying to keep their parents safe and in the home. So this program is going to be so important to me. And on July the 13th, we are asking people to come and make their voices be heard so that they can make a difference. To say that we need to look at another way of taking care of our seniors.
Well, Jean, we've had home health care workers on the program, many of them, and Tamika Atkins with the Domestic Workers Alliance is also one of our co-hosts, but is very pregnant and has gone on a pregnancy leave.
Okay.
And so we've had the workers here talking about several things. One, about how much they really are passionate about their jobs, about how they really feel that they make a big difference in people's lives and families' lives. But they've also talked about how, what a financial crisis they face themselves. And also that they, as they get older, won't have the resources either for them, for people to take care of them. So Neil, I want to bring you into this conversation. So how is it that Jobs with Justice got engaged in this campaign? Because you've been largely involved around the fast food workers and other workers. And this is kind of like another whole area of where the relationship between low wages and the community emerges.
Yeah, definitely. So Atlanta Jobs with Justice, we're part of the National Jobs with Justice that developed this campaign called Caring Across Generations, and it's really a campaign to bring into Alliance seniors and other recipients of home care services, including the disability community and others, to come into Alliance with the home care workers, because they know, as so many more people are retiring in our nation, as like I said, as Jean said, the baby boomers are aging and eventually may need care. We're going to see a huge crisis in this industry. We're going to see costs skyrocket, and most people being unable to afford these care services because there's only so many people providing these services now. And just as the demand expands, we think this crisis is going to kind of put a lot of families at risk, for how are they going to take care of their family members. We may see people having to take off from work and be able to to be able to care for their families, and that's something that could hurt their economic prospects. So we think we want a system that benefits both the aging community and the home care workers themselves, and a lot needs to change between now and then to really come up with a solution. And we saw this this issue is happening all across our country, including in Atlanta, and we saw the opportunity to start having these conversations with seniors. And particularly as the Fight for 15 in Atlanta has been expanding and home care workers have been building here, we saw this as a great opportunity to start engaging seniors, to start building deeper with the home care workers who've been organizing, and start to have conversations within the community of how are we going to deal with the home care system, how can we make it better, how can we get workers with a decent wage, and how can we get seniors stable, quality home care services that they can rely on and that their families can rely on.
So I know you have an event coming up, you mentioned it, Jean, on the next Monday, a week from today. Well, which one of you wants to give us the details?
Well, I'd love to. We're having this event at the Helene Mills Center, which is on 515 John Wesley Dobbs Drive, and that's at a multi-purpose senior facility in Fulton County. And we're expecting about 50 people to be there. We're going to do a watch, what we call it, watching the town hall meeting in Washington, D.C., where we will have people talking about the need to have a better vision for health care, the people who provide that service, and then the workers. Because this is caring across generations, is talking about each generation caring about each other. So we're going to do that, and we're going to have people to do testimonies, and we're really excited about it. We think it's going to be so fabulous, and people will want to be there to make a difference.
Did you give the address one more time?
Yeah.
Helene Mills is right off of Boulevard.
That's correct. If you're coming out 75 and take the Freedom Parkway exit, you turn right and you go one block and turn left, and you'll see that building right on the side, 515 John Wesley Dobbs Avenue. And the center's named Helene Mills Multipurpose Center.
And the time for it starting is?
10 o'clock, from 10 to 12.
10 to 12. So people who are listening and who have interest in this, topic. Is there a way for them to get more information? Do you have a website or a Facebook event page or something like that?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook event page. Folks can go to Atlanta Jobs of Justice, or search for Atlanta Jobs of Justice on Facebook, or it's facebook.com//AtlantaJWJ. And this event is listed up there. We're also posting some information on our website at atlantajwj.org. And folks certainly can look us up, get in contact with us, and particularly for any of the seniors out in the community who are really interested and want to engage on this issue of home care in Atlanta, we definitely appreciate their support.
I just have to make one comment. There was an article just recently in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about the huge amounts of donations that were given to certain elected officials from the nursing home industry that allowed the rates for these nursing homes to go up.
Interesting.
Interesting.
And I think it's an interesting juxtaposition because just recently in Massachusetts they voted to across the board give all the home care workers a minimum wage of $15 an hour. And we know our state is, you know, certainly far behind that, but we know given that when one worker or when one group of workers win it, they definitely pave the way and make it possible for many others. And we know that seniors were very key in that struggle in Massachusetts, and that they certainly in Georgia, they can play a very key role in helping not only provide better wages and better jobs for their care workers, but also in turn providing more funding potentially from the state for more people to get coverage and to be able to get their home care services.
Well, Paul and I both thank you both so much, Jim Davis, Neil Sardona, for telling us about this program next week, and I surely hope I will be able to get there.
Thank you so very much
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
us.
And I just want to say again, listeners, that we are in our pledge drive here at WRFG 89.3 FM, and if this was the only place you were going to find out about this program, it's of interest to you because you either are a home health care worker, or you know a home health care worker, or you know a senior who has a home health care worker or needs one,
Yes.
and that you found out about it here at WRFG. We certainly hope that you will take the opportunity to contribute financially to keep this station on air, because this is your community radio station, Progressive Information. Thank you again, both of you.
Thank you.
All right, thank
We're
you.
gonna take another short break while we move some chairs around and bring our other guests up, and we'll be right back. You are listening to WRFG 89.3 FM in Atlanta.
Thank you. Thank you.